I was sitting in that sterile nursing home room, staring at the yellow wallpaper peeling in the corner, when I realized my own daughter had played me for a fool. She'd taken my house, the house my Carolyn and I built with our own two hands over 40 years, gotten me to sign some papers I barely looked at because I trusted her, and dropped me off here like yesterday's trash with a pat on the shoulder and a promise to visit soon. That was 8 months ago. 8 months of watching that door, waiting for her to walk through it, eating butterscotch pudding cups, and watching Wheel of Fortune with strangers who don't remember my name. But here's what my sweet Jennifer didn't know. Couldn't have known, because she was too busy counting what she thought was her inheritance. The deed I signed that day wasn't quite what she thought it was. And when I finally got that phone call, the one I'd been waiting for all these lonely months, I knew it was time to teach my only child a lesson her mother would have been ashamed she never learned. Tell me, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. And don't forget to subscribe. I've got plenty more stories like this one to keep you company. My name is Harold Jensen, and I'm 72 years old. For most of my life, I thought I knew what family meant. I thought I understood loyalty, trust, the kind of bond that holds people together when everything else falls apart. I raised Jennifer by myself after her mother died. My Carolyn, God rest her soul, when Jenny was only 14 years old. Breast cancer took Carolyn in 6 brutal months, and suddenly it was just me and my baby girl against the world. I worked double shifts at the auto plant, cooked dinners that would have made Carolyn shake her head and laugh, helped with homework I barely understood myself, and did everything I could to make sure Jennifer had the life her mother would have wanted for her. I wasn't perfect, I'll admit that. There were nights I came home so tired I could barely keep my eyes open during her school presentations. There were father-daughter dances I stepped on her toes through because Carolyn was always the dancer, not me. But I loved that girl with everything I had. Every paycheck went to making sure she had nice clothes, a good education, opportunities I never had growing up in rural Kentucky. When she got accepted to college, first one in our family to go, I took out a second mortgage on the house to help pay for it. Worth every penny, I thought then. She's going to make something of herself. And she did, in a way. Jennifer graduated with a business degree, got herself a good job in marketing, married a man named Derek, who wore suits that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. They had 2 kids, my grandkids, Tyler and Emma, and moved to a suburb 40 minutes away with houses that all looked the same and lawns you could measure with a ruler. I was proud of her, don't get me wrong. But somewhere along the way, the girl who used to sit on my lap and tell me about her day became this stranger who only called on holidays and my birthday, and sometimes not even then. After I retired from the plant at 65, things got quieter. The house felt bigger somehow, emptier without Carolyn's laugh filling up the rooms or the sound of Jennifer's teenage music thumping through the ceiling. I kept myself busy with projects, fixed the porch railing, repainted the kitchen, tended to Carolyn's rose garden out back, even though I never had her green thumb. The house was paid off by then, all 1,800 square feet of it, sitting on 2 acres of land that had tripled in value over the years. I knew it was worth something, maybe $400,000 according to the real estate agent who kept leaving cards in my mailbox, but I didn't care about the money. That house was my memories, my life with Carolyn, every corner filled with moments I couldn't put a price on. Jennifer started visiting more often about 2 years ago, right after I turned 70. At first, I was thrilled. My daughter, finally making time for her old man, bringing the grandkids to see the room where their mother grew up, sitting in the kitchen, where Carolyn used to make her famous apple pie. But the visits always had this edge to them, this tension I couldn't quite name. She'd walk through the house with her eyes moving over everything, like she was taking inventory. She'd make comments about how much work the place needed, how the roof was probably shot, how the furnace was ancient and inefficient. "Dad, you're getting older," she'd say, sitting across from me at the same kitchen table, where I'd helped her with algebra homework 30 years ago. This house is too much for you. What if you fall? What if something happens and you're here all alone? I'd tell her I was fine, that I'd been taking care of myself for 7 years since retiring and managing just fine, thank you very much. But she'd shake her head with this concerned look that I wanted to believe was genuine. I worry about you, Daddy. We all do. Derek and I have been talking, and we think maybe it's time to consider your options. Options. That word started coming up a lot. Options for downsizing. Options for senior living communities. Options that all seem to involve me leaving the only home I'd ever known. At first, I brushed it off. Jennifer was just being concerned, trying to be a good daughter, thinking about my welfare. But then Derek started coming along on the visits, and he'd walk around the property with this calculating look, mentioning things like development potential, and market timing, and equity access. I didn't like the way he looked at my home, like it was already his to measure and divide up. The first real alarm bell went off about 6 months ago. Jennifer came over on a Tuesday afternoon, unusual because she never visited midweek, with a stack of papers and this bright, forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. She sat me down at the kitchen table, poured me coffee I didn't ask for, and started talking fast, too fast, about how she'd found this wonderful facility called Meadowbrook Senior Living, how it had activities and nurses on staff and people my own age to socialize with, how I'd be so much happier there instead of rattling around in this big old house all alone. Jennifer, I said, setting down my coffee cup carefully because my hands were starting to shake. I don't want to live in a nursing home. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself right here. Her smile tightened. It's not a nursing home, Dad. It's independent living. And you're 70 years old. 72, I corrected her. 72, she continued without missing a beat. And you're not getting any younger. What happens when you can't manage the stairs? What happens when you can't drive anymore? Don't you think it's better to make this decision now, while you still have a choice, instead of waiting until there's an emergency? The thing was, she made it sound so reasonable, so logical, like a business decision, which I suppose it was to her. She kept talking about my quality of life, my safety, my well-being, all these phrases that sounded caring but felt cold somehow. And then she slid the papers across the table. "What's this?" I asked, reaching for my reading glasses. "Just some preliminary documents," she said, still with that smile. "Power of attorney, so I can help you manage your finances and medical decisions if you need it. And a quitclaim deed to transfer the house into a family trust. For estate planning purposes, it'll make everything so much simpler when the time comes, and you won't have to worry about probate or taxes or any of that complicated legal stuff." I should have called my lawyer right then. Bob Templeton had handled all our legal work for years. He'd drafted Carolyn's will, helped me with the mortgage refinancing, filed the paperwork when I retired. He would have told me to slow down, read every word, understand what I was signing. But I didn't call Bob. I sat there looking at my daughter, my only child, the little girl I'd raised by myself and sacrificed everything for. And I thought, she wouldn't hurt me. She's just trying to help. She loves me. The trust keeps the house in the family, Jennifer explained, tapping a manicured fingernail on the papers. You'll still live here as long as you want, but legally, it'll be protected. And the power of attorney is just a precaution, Dad. You're healthy now, but what if something happens? This way I can make sure your bills get paid, your medical care is handled, all of that. It's what Mom would have wanted. Bringing up Carolyn like that should have been my second warning. But instead, it worked. My chest tightened, and I thought about my wife, about how she'd made me promise to take care of Jennifer, to always be there for her. Would Carolyn want me to make things difficult for our daughter? Would she want me to be stubborn and difficult when Jennifer was just trying to plan ahead? I signed the papers that day. All of them. Jennifer watched me write my name with this look of relief on her face. Then she gathered up everything quickly, gave me a hug that felt like checking off a box on her to-do list, and left. She took the original documents with her, for safekeeping, she said, and left me with copies that I put in a drawer and tried not to think about. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what. It was like watching a storm roll in from far away, knowing it was coming, but not sure when it would hit. 3 weeks later, Jennifer showed up again with Derek, and a man I'd never met before. His name was Richard, and he managed Meadowbrook Senior Living. They had a whole presentation ready. Glossy brochures showing happy old people playing cards and doing Tai Chi, pricing sheets, floor plans of comfortable studio apartments, a list of amenities that made the place sound like a cruise ship instead of where people went to die. Richard had this practiced spiel about community and care and dignity, and Derek kept nodding along like it was all very reasonable and smart. "We've already put down a deposit," Jennifer said, and that's when my stomach dropped. "Just to hold a spot for you, Dad. The waiting list is really long, but there's an opening next month, and we didn't want you to miss it." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger sitting in my living room. "You put down a deposit without asking me?" My voice came out harder than I intended. "For my own good," she said, and there was something in her tone now, something sharp under the sweetness. "Dad, we've been over this. The house is too much for you. You're isolated out here. What if you fell and nobody found you for days? We're trying to help you." "I don't need help," I said, standing up. "I need you to respect that this is my home and my decision." Derek exchanged a look with Jennifer, the kind of look that said they'd expected this, planned for it. "Harold," Derek said. "He never called me Dad. Always Harold, like we were business associates. We understand this is emotional, but the legal documents you signed give Jennifer the authority to make these decisions in your best interest. The house is in the family trust now, and as trustee, Jennifer has the right to determine the best use of the property." The room tilted, just slightly, but enough that I had to sit back down. "What do you mean?" Jennifer pulled out her copy of the papers I'd signed, pointing to sections highlighted in yellow. "The trust gives me control of the property, Dad. You signed it over, and the power of attorney means I can make medical and financial decisions on your behalf if I determine you're not capable of making them yourself." The words landed like punches. "Are you saying I'm not capable?" "We're saying you're getting older, and you need to be realistic," Derek cut in. "The house is worth close to $500,000. That's your retirement security sitting here, unused while you eat TV dinners and watch the place fall apart around you." "So, this is about money," I said quietly. Jennifer's face flushed. "It's about taking care of you. The house can be sold to pay for your care at Meadowbrook. It's a good investment, Dad. You'll have round-the-clock support, medical care, social activities. I'll have a room the size of my bathroom and strangers telling me when to eat and when to sleep," I said. My hands were shaking now, anger and fear mixing together in my chest until I could barely breathe. "You're putting me away. That's what this is. You're putting me in a home so you can sell my house." The silence that followed was terrible. Jennifer stood up, smoothed her expensive blouse, and looked at me with eyes that could have been a stranger's. "Move-in date is September 15th. We'll come help you pack. You can bring personal items, clothes, photos, things that fit in the room. Everything else will need to be sold or donated." She walked out of my house, like she owned it, which, I realized with growing horror, she now did. I sat in that living room for hours after they left, watching the sun set through the windows Carolyn and I had picked out together 40 years ago, and I felt something break inside me. Not my heart. That had broken when Carolyn died. This was different. This was the last bit of trust I'd had in the world, the belief that family meant something, that love was more than just words people said when they wanted something from you. My daughter had betrayed me. My only child, The girl I'd raised and sacrificed for, and loved more than my own life, had tricked me into signing away my home so she could lock me in a facility and sell my memories to the highest bidder. But here's what Jennifer didn't know. Couldn't have known because she'd been too eager to grab what she thought was hers. I may have been a simple factory worker who never finished college, but I wasn't stupid. And I had one friend who was a whole lot smarter than Derek's fancy lawyers would ever give him credit for. The next morning, first thing, I drove to Bob Templeton's office downtown. Bob was 75, mostly retired, but he still kept office hours 3 days a week because he said he'd go crazy sitting at home watching daytime TV. He'd been my friend for 30 years, been Carolyn's friend too, and when I walked into his cluttered office and told him what Jennifer had done, the look on his face told me everything I needed to know. "You signed a quitclaim deed without reading it?" Bob asked, his bushy gray eyebrows climbing toward his hairline. "Without calling me?" I explained about Jennifer's reassurances, about the trust, about how I thought I was just doing estate planning. Bob put on his reading glasses and studied the copies I'd brought, making small humming noises that didn't sound good. After what felt like an hour, he looked up. "Harold, this is bad. She's right. She has legal control of the property now. But," he paused, and I saw something like a smile start to form. "There might be something we can do." "What do you mean?" I leaned forward, desperate for any lifeline. "Tell me about the house," Bob said. "When did you buy it? What's it worth? Any other properties or assets?" I told him everything. Bought the house in 1983 for $87,000. Paid it off in full in 2004. Current value somewhere around $450,000 according to the real estate agent. No other property, but I had savings, about $180,000 in the bank from my pension and Social Security over the years. Money I'd been careful with because Carolyn taught me to save for rainy days. Bob listened, making notes, nodding slowly. "Here's what we're going to do," Bob said finally, and the gleam in his eye reminded me why Carolyn used to call him the sneakiest honest lawyer in 3 counties. "We're going to let Jennifer think she won. We're going to let her put you in that facility. Let her start making plans to sell the house. Let her get comfortable. And while she's doing that, we're going to build a case. A strong one. Because what your daughter did, tricking you into signing documents, claiming you're incompetent when you're clearly not, using undue influence to seize your assets, that's elder abuse, Harold. And it's illegal as hell." I stared at Bob, hope flickering in my chest for the first time in days. "Can we get the house back?" "We can do better than that," Bob said. "We can make sure she faces consequences for what she's done. But Harold, you have to be willing to play along for a while. You have to go to Meadowbrook. Let her think she's won. Can you do that?" I thought about it. Thought about living in that facility, eating institutional food, sleeping in a room that wasn't mine, pretending to be the helpless old man my daughter apparently thought I was. It would be hard, lonely, maybe even humiliating. But if it meant teaching Jennifer the lesson Carolyn and I somehow failed to teach her, that family isn't about what you can take, it's about what you're willing to give, then I'd do it. "I can do it," I told Bob, and we shook hands like we were planning a military operation, which, in a way, we were. That's how I ended up at Meadowbrook Senior Living on September 15th, watching Jennifer and Derek carry in my few belongings, clothes, photos, my favorite chair that barely fit in the small room, acting like they were doing me the biggest favor in the world. Jennifer kissed my cheek, promised to visit soon, and walked away without looking back. The door closed. I sat in that narrow bed, in that sterile room that smelled like disinfectant and resignation, surrounded by strangers who were already forgetting my name. And I waited. 8 months. That's how long it took. 8 months of eating butterscotch pudding cups and watching Wheel of Fortune and playing checkers with other residents who'd been warehoused by their families just like me. 8 months of Jennifer's promised visits, never materializing. She called twice, both times to tell me she was too busy to come but thinking of me. 8 months of watching her Instagram through the facility's computer room. Seeing pictures of her family vacations funded by money she was already pulling from the house sale plans. 8 months of pretending to be defeated while Bob built his case. Gathering evidence, documenting everything, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And then, finally, the call came. Not from Bob, but from Jennifer. Her voice on the phone was different this time. Tight, worried, almost panicked. "Dad," she said, and it was the first time in months she'd called me that instead of Harold. "Dad, I need to talk to you. There's been a complication with the house sale. Can I come see you?" I looked around my cramped room, at the calendar where I'd been counting days like a prisoner, and I smiled. A real smile. The first one in months. "Sure, honey," I said, my voice sweet as poison. "You come right ahead. I'll be here waiting for you. I'm not going anywhere." Because here's what Jennifer was about to learn. The deed she thought she'd signed giving her control of everything. Bob and I had found something in the fine print. Something her expensive lawyer had missed. A clause. A protection. A little gift from Bob's sneaky legal mind that had been there all along, buried in language only someone who actually cared enough to read would find. The game was about to change, and my daughter was about to discover that underestimating your old man is the biggest mistake you can make. Jennifer showed up 3 days later, and I barely recognized her. The polished, confident woman who'd dropped me off 8 months ago looked frayed around the edges. Her makeup couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes, and she'd chewed her bottom lip raw. Derek wasn't with her this time. Interesting. She came alone, carrying one of those expensive leather bags that probably cost more than my monthly pension, clutching it like a life preserver. I was sitting in the common room when she arrived, right where I'd told her I'd be, playing checkers with Walter, a Korean War vet who could barely remember what year it was, but never forgot how to win at checkers. "Dad," Jennifer said, her voice too bright, too loud in the quiet room where half the residents were dozing in their chairs. "How are you? You look good. Have you lost weight?" I made a show of standing up slowly, like my joints hurt, even though I'd been doing exercises in my room every morning to stay strong for exactly this moment. "Hello, Jennifer. It's been a while." The guilt that flashed across her face was satisfying. "I know. I'm sorry. Work has been crazy, and the kids have so many activities, and—" "It's fine," I interrupted, keeping my voice neutral. "You said there was a problem with the house?" She glanced around the common room at the other residents, at Walter, who was resetting the checkerboard with shaking hands, at Mrs. Chen, who was knitting something that looked like it might have been a scarf 6 months ago. "Can we talk somewhere private?" We walked to my room in silence. It was the first time she'd actually seen where I lived, I realized. 8 months, and she'd never bothered to visit my room, see the space she'd confined me to. I watched her take it in. The narrow bed, the small closet, the single window that looked out on the parking lot, the framed photo of her mother that was one of the few personal items I'd been allowed to bring. Her face went pale. "Dad, this is—" she started, then caught herself. "It's cozy. It's a prison cell with better lighting," I said flatly, sitting in my chair, the good one from home that barely fit in the corner. "But you didn't come here to discuss the accommodations. What's wrong with the house sale?" Jennifer sat on the edge of my bed, opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "There's been a complication. A legal complication. The title company found something when they were doing the paperwork for the buyers." I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, and waited. Let her squirm. "The deed," she finally said. "The quitclaim deed you signed. There's apparently some kind of clause in it that the buyer's lawyer caught. Something about—" She pulled out papers from her bag with shaking hands. "Something about retained life estate rights and required occupancy. Dad, did you know about this when you signed?" Every cell in my body wanted to smile, but I kept my face blank, confused, like the helpless old man she thought I was. "I don't understand legal talk, honey. You know that." I signed what you told me to sign. Nicht. This clause, Jennifer said, her voice rising with frustration, it says that while the property is in the trust, you retain the right to live there, and that the property can't be sold or transferred unless you're actually living in it at the time of sale. Dad, you have to be occupying the house for the sale to go through. There it was. Bob's beautiful, sneaky, perfectly legal trap. He'd buried that clause in the trust documents, knowing Jennifer and her lawyer would skim right over it in their rush to grab control. Standard life estate language that protected elderly people from being forced out of their homes by greedy relatives. The kind of thing a good lawyer would have caught. But Derek's buddy, who drew up the papers, had been more interested in speed than thoroughness. I don't understand, I said slowly, playing my part. What does that mean? It means you have to move back into the house, Jennifer said, and she actually sounded angry about it. The buyers won't close unless you're the primary resident. Something about the title insurance and legal liability. Their lawyer is insisting on it. Move back? I let confusion color my voice. But you said I couldn't manage the house. You said I needed to be here, with medical care and people around. You said it was for my own good. Jennifer stood up, paced the small room in 3 steps, turned, paced back. That was before. This changes things. We need you to move back for at least 30 days before the sale can go through. Maybe 60. The lawyer is checking the exact requirements. And you have to be living there, Dad. Actually living there, not just visiting. Bills in your name, mail delivery, the whole thing. And then what? I asked. Then you sell the house and put me back here? She had the decency to look ashamed. Just for a second. We'll figure something out. Maybe a different facility. Something nicer. But Dad, the buyers are threatening to back out completely if we can't resolve this. They've already put down earnest money. And if the sale falls through because of this clause, we could be liable for damages. Derek says, Derek? I interrupted quietly. Where is Derek today, by the way? Jennifer's jaw tightened. He's dealing with some business issues. This has been stressful for him too, you know. He was counting on the house money for an investment opportunity that... She stopped, realizing how that sounded. Never mind. The point is, we need you to move back home, at least temporarily. I sat there looking at my daughter, this stranger who'd put her father in a warehouse and called it love, and I made a decision. No. The word hung in the air between us like a grenade. What? Jennifer's voice cracked. No, I'm not moving back just so you can sell my house. This is my home now. You said so yourself. You said I needed to be here, that it was too dangerous for me to live alone, that I wasn't capable of managing anymore. Well, you were right, honey. I'm not capable. I'm too old, too confused, too frail. I belong right here at Meadowbrook Senior Living, where you put me for my own good. I watched the emotions play across her face. Disbelief, anger, panic, calculation. Dad, please, you don't understand what's at stake here. We've already spent money on this. The house has been empty for 8 months. We're paying property taxes and insurance and maintenance. If this sale falls through, you'll lose money? I finished for her. That's what this is about? Not my welfare? Not my happiness? Just money? That's not fair, Jennifer said, but her voice was weak. I did what I thought was best for you. You did what was best for yourself, I corrected her. You saw an asset you wanted, and you took it. The fact that it was your father's home, his memories, his choice, that didn't matter. Just the money, just the investment opportunity, just what you could get. If you've ever felt something like this, let me know in the comments. Because watching your own child's face when they realize they've been caught, there's no preparing for that pain. Jennifer tried a different tack. Tears now. Dad, please. I made mistakes. I know that. I should have been more considerate. I should have visited more. But we're family. Doesn't that count for something? Can't we work this out? Family. I repeated the word like it tasted bitter. You want to talk about family? Your mother, God rest her soul, worked herself to death making sure you had everything you needed. I took out a second mortgage for your college education. I gave up my retirement dreams so you could have yours. And the first chance you got, you tricked me into signing away my home and locked me in here like yesterday's trash. I didn't trick you. Yes, you did, I said, and my voice was steel now. You brought over papers you knew I wouldn't understand, used legal language you knew would confuse me, and pressured me when I was vulnerable and missing your mother. That's exactly what you did. And now you're only here because you need something from me again. Not because you love me, not because you missed me, because the money isn't working out the way you planned. Jennifer was crying for real now, mascara running down her cheeks. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? I am. I'm so sorry, Dad. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. But please, please help us. We're in trouble. Derek made some investments that didn't pan out. We owe money. A lot of money. We need the house sale to go through, or we're going to lose everything. There it was. The truth, finally. Not concern for me, not careful planning for my future. Desperation. They were in debt, had been counting on my house to bail them out, and now their meal ticket was refusing to cooperate. How much? I asked quietly. What? How much do you owe? Jennifer wiped her eyes, leaving black smudges across her face. $200,000. Derek invested in a commercial real estate deal that fell through. The bank is threatening foreclosure on our house. We've got maybe 3 months before we lose everything. She looked up at me with red eyes. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I've been a terrible daughter. But Dad, please, think about Tyler and Emma, your grandchildren. They'll lose their home. They'll have to change schools. Everything will be destroyed. Using the grandkids. That was low, even for her. Have Tyler and Emma been to visit me? I asked. What? In 8 months. Have your children, my grandchildren, come to see me even once? Silence. That's what I thought. You want me to care about their home when you didn't care about mine? Dad, I need you to leave now, Jennifer, I said, suddenly tired, bone tired. I need you to go back to your husband and your debts and your problems, and I need you to figure them out without using me as your bank account. But the house is mine, I said firmly. According to the very documents you had me sign, I have life estate rights. That means I decide what happens to it. And I've decided I'm not moving back just to make your sale easier. Jennifer stood up, angry now, tears forgotten. This isn't over. I'm still the trustee. I still have power of attorney. I can have you declared incompetent and force you to move back. Try it, I said calmly. Get your lawyers. File your paperwork. We'll see what a judge thinks about a daughter who hasn't visited her father in 8 months, trying to claim she's acting in his best interest. He grabbed her expensive bag and headed for the door, then turned back. You're being selfish, stubborn. You're going to let your own grandchildren suffer because you're holding a grudge. I'm being exactly what you taught me to be, I replied. I'm doing what's in my best interest, without regard for how it affects my family. Sound familiar? The door slammed. I sat in my chair for a long time, shaking. Not from fear or regret, but from adrenaline. Phase 1 was complete. Jennifer knew about the clause, knew she was trapped, knew I held all the cards. Now came Phase 2. I picked up the phone and called Bob. She knows, I told him when he answered. Good, Bob said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Let's let her panic for a few days. Then we make our move. That weekend, I didn't hear from Jennifer. No calls, no visits, nothing. But I knew she was out there, probably meeting with lawyers, trying to find a way around the clause, getting increasingly desperate as the house buyers grew impatient. I spent my time in the common room, playing checkers with Walter, watching game shows with Mrs. Chen, acting like I didn't have a care in the world. But inside, I was counting down. On Tuesday, Bob came to visit. He signed in at the front desk like any other visitor, carrying a briefcase and wearing his usual rumpled suit. We went to my room, and he laid out the next phase of the plan. The buyers are getting antsy, he told me. Their lawyer contacted me directly. They know I'm your personal attorney now. They want to know if you're going to comply with the occupancy requirement or if they should walk away from the deal. What did you tell them? I told them you're considering your options and will have an answer by Friday. Bob opened his briefcase and pulled out more documents. But here's what we're really going to do. We're going to file a complaint with Adult Protective Services about Jennifer's conduct, elder abuse, financial exploitation. We have documentation of everything. The rushed signing, her failure to visit, the attempts to sell the house while you're institutionalized against your will. My stomach clenched. That's serious. It's supposed to be serious, Bob said. What she did is serious. She could face criminal charges, Harold. Jail time, even. This isn't just civil court territory anymore. The DA's office takes elder abuse very seriously. I don't want her to go to jail, I said quickly. She's still my daughter. I just want her to understand what she did wrong. Bob looked at me with those wise old eyes. Harold, do you think she understands? Really? Because from where I'm sitting, she only came back because she needed something from you again. Not because she had a change of heart. He was right, and I knew it. But she was still my baby girl. Still the kid who used to bring me dandelions and call them flowers. Still the teenager who cried on my shoulder when boys broke her heart. What are my options? I asked. We can file the complaint and let the chips fall where they may. Or, Bob paused, we can use it as leverage. Tell Jennifer that you'll move back to the house, allow the sale to go through, but only under specific conditions. Conditions that make sure she can never do this to you again. What kind of conditions? You move back home immediately. The power of attorney is revoked. The trust is dissolved, and the house goes back in your name only. She gets nothing from the sale. It all goes into a protected account for your care, managed by an independent trustee. And, Bob pulled out another document. She signs this. I looked at the paper. It was a formal apology letter, admitting to what she'd done, acknowledging the elder abuse, and agreeing to make amends. She'll never sign this, I said. Not if she wants to avoid criminal charges, Bob replied. This is her way out. She signs, she apologizes, she walks away with clean hands, and we don't press charges. She refuses, and we take everything to the authorities. It was harsh, maybe too harsh, but then I thought about 8 months in this room. 8 months of eating butterscotch pudding and watching Wheel of Fortune and going to bed in a space smaller than my old closet. 8 months of being forgotten, discarded, treated like I was already dead. Do it, I told Bob. Set up the meeting. You ever gone through something like that yourself? I'd really like to hear it. Because I'm telling you, planning revenge against your own child, it eats at you in ways you can't prepare for. Jennifer came back on Thursday, this time with Derek. He looked worse than she did. Suit wrinkled, tie loose, sweat on his forehead despite the cool weather. They'd brought their lawyer, too, a young guy in his 30s who kept checking his phone and looking uncomfortable. Bob was waiting in the conference room Meadowbrook let us use for family meetings. The room smelled like stale coffee and defeat. We all sat around a table that was too small for 6 people, knees bumping, breathing each other's air. Thank you all for coming, Bob began, formal as a funeral director. We're here to discuss the disposition of Harold Jensen's property and estate. As you know, there are some significant legal issues that need to be resolved. Derek cut in immediately. Look, we don't have time for a lot of legal back and forth. The buyers are walking if we don't give them an answer by tomorrow. Just tell us what Harold wants, so we can move forward. Bob slid copies of his documents across the table. What Harold wants is justice. What he'll settle for are these terms. I watched them read, watched their faces change from impatience to disbelief to anger. Jennifer's lawyer whispered something in her ear. Derek's face turned red. This is extortion, Derek spat. You're trying to blackmail us into admitting what you did? I spoke for the first time, and everyone turned to look at me. Into acknowledging that you tricked a 72-year-old man into signing away his home? Into confessing that you warehoused me here and forgot about me while you spent money you didn't have? That's not blackmail, Derek. That's called telling the truth. We were trying to help you, Jennifer started, but I held up my hand. Stop. Just stop lying. To me, to yourself, to everyone in this room. We all know why you did what you did. You needed money. You saw an easy mark in your grieving father. You took advantage. Now you have a choice. You can admit it, make it right, and we can all move forward. Or you can keep lying. And Bob here will file elder abuse charges with the DA's office tomorrow morning. Your choice. The silence was thick enough to cut. Jennifer looked at Derek. Derek looked at their lawyer. The lawyer looked at his phone like he wanted to be anywhere else. Finally, Jennifer spoke, her voice small and broken. What happens after I sign this? What happens to the house sale? The sale goes through, Bob explained. Harold moves back home for the required 60 days. After that, if he chooses to sell, the money goes into a trust managed by an independent bank, with monthly distributions for his care. Whether he stays at home or moves somewhere else is his decision, not yours. You have no control over any of it. So we get nothing? Derek asked incredulously. After everything we've done, after everything you've done, I interrupted. You're lucky to avoid jail time. The house money was never yours. It's mine. I earned it. I saved it. I built it. You want your grandchildren to keep their home? Get a second job. Sell your car. Do what I did when I raised Jennifer alone and worked doubles to keep the lights on. Figure it out like an adult, instead of stealing from your father-in-law. Derek stood up so fast his chair fell over. I don't have to listen to this. Come on, Jennifer. We'll find another way. But Jennifer didn't move. She sat there staring at the apology letter, tears running down her face again, and this time they looked real, honest. There is no other way, she whispered. Is there? No, their lawyer confirmed. If you don't sign this, the criminal complaint goes forward. I've reviewed the evidence Mr. Templeton has compiled, and, frankly, Jennifer, you'd be lucky to avoid jail time. The DA has been cracking down on elder financial abuse. This is your only way out. Jennifer picked up the pen with a shaking hand. Derek grabbed her wrist. Don't you dare sign that. We'll fight this. We'll what? Jennifer turned to look at her husband, and I saw something crack in her expression. We'll keep lying, keep fighting, keep pretending we didn't do something terrible? I'm tired, Derek. I'm so tired. She signed the letter. Every page. Her signature got messier as she went, tears blurring the ink in places. When she finished, she pushed it across to Bob and looked at me. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time in years, I thought she might actually mean it. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know I've destroyed whatever we had, but I am sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry for all of it. Derek stormed out, his lawyer scrambling after him. Jennifer sat there a moment longer, then stood slowly. When do you want to move back home? End of the week, I said. Bob will handle the arrangements. She nodded, started to leave, then turned back. The house. Your house. I kept the garden going. Mom's roses. I hired someone to maintain them. I don't know what I thought, but they're still there, still blooming. After she left, Bob packed up his papers and gave me a long look. You okay? No, I admitted, but I will be. How long until I can go home? 3 days. I'll have a cleaning service go through. Make sure everything's ready. You want me to arrange for some help? Someone to check on you? No, I said firmly. I've had enough of people checking on me to last a lifetime. I'll be fine on my own. That's what I wanted all along, just to be left alone in my own home. The day I moved back into my house, I stood on the front porch for a solid 5 minutes before I could make myself go inside. 8 months might not sound like a long time, but it's long enough for a place to stop feeling like yours. Long enough for the echoes of other people's decisions to fill up the empty rooms. But when I finally turned that key and stepped through the door, something settled in my chest. Carolyn's presence was still there in the wallpaper she'd picked out, the kitchen tiles we'd laid together one summer, the view from the living room window where we'd watched Jennifer learn to ride a bike. Bob had been true to his word. The place was clean, the utilities were on, and someone had left fresh groceries in the refrigerator. I walked through every room slowly, reacquainting myself with my own life. In the backyard, Carolyn's roses were indeed blooming, deep red American beauties that had been her pride and joy. Someone had mulched them, pruned them, cared for them. Despite everything, Jennifer had kept that promise. That first night back, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and watched the sun set. I thought about justice and revenge, and whether there was really any difference between the two. I thought about Carolyn and what she would have said about all this. Probably that I was a stubborn old fool, but she would have smiled when she said it. I thought about Jennifer, about the little girl she used to be and the woman she'd become, and wondered if people could really change, or if we just became more of what we already were. The house sold 6 weeks later for $465,000. Every penny went into the trust Bob had set up, managed by a bank that had no emotional investment in me or my family. The monthly distributions were more than enough to live on comfortably, and I had full control over where I lived. I chose to stay in the house, alone, exactly as I'd wanted from the beginning. Derek and Jennifer divorced 4 months after that. I heard about it through Aurora, my neighbor who'd kept an eye on the place while I was gone. Apparently, Derek blamed Jennifer for losing the house money, said she was weak for signing the apology letter, that she'd ruined their last chance. She moved into a small apartment with Tyler and Emma, got a job at a real estate office, and slowly started rebuilding her life. I didn't hear from her for almost 6 months. Then, on Christmas Eve, there was a knock on my door. Jennifer stood on the porch with Tyler and Emma, holding a pie she'd obviously made herself. The crust was crooked, and there was flour in her hair. "Hi, Dad," she said quietly. "I know I don't have the right to ask, but—" She gestured to the kids. "They wanted to see their grandpa, and I needed to tell you something." I looked at my grandchildren, who'd grown so much I barely recognized them. Tyler was 12 now, almost a teenager. Emma was 9, clutching a drawing she'd made. They looked nervous, like they weren't sure if I was going to slam the door in their faces. "Come in," I said finally, stepping aside. "It's cold out there." We sat in the living room that had been Carolyn's pride. Jennifer helped the kids hang their coats and then perched on the edge of the sofa like she was afraid to get comfortable. "I brought apple pie," she said. "I remember it was Grandma's favorite. I used her recipe. It's probably not as good as hers, but I'm sure it's fine," I said. Then to the kids, "Your grandma made the best apple pie in 3 counties. Won first prize at the state fair twice." Emma held out her drawing. "I drew this for you, Grandpa. It's you and Grandma in the garden." I took it with shaking hands. It was simple, childlike, but she'd captured something true. 2 figures standing among red roses, holding hands, smiling. "This is beautiful, sweetheart." "Thank you." Tyler cleared his throat. "Mom told us what happened. What she did. She said we needed to know the truth." He looked at me with serious eyes. "I'm sorry we didn't visit you. We should have. Even if Mom was, even if she wasn't being fair to you, we should have come. You're here now," I said, and realized I meant it. These kids weren't responsible for their mother's choices. They were just children who'd been caught in the middle of adult problems. That's what matters. Jennifer wiped her eyes. "Dad, I came here to tell you something. Not to ask for anything, not to try to fix what I broke, just to tell you the truth. What I did to you, putting you in that place, taking your house, forgetting about you. It wasn't about the money. I mean, we needed the money, yes, but that's not why I did it." "Then why?" I asked quietly. She took a shaky breath. "Because I was terrified. Terrified of watching you get old. Of being responsible for you the way you were responsible for me after Mom died. I saw you in this house all alone, and it reminded me every day that you were going to die someday, and I couldn't handle it. So I convinced myself you'd be better off somewhere else, somewhere with nurses and doctors, somewhere that wasn't my responsibility. I told myself I was protecting you, but really, I was protecting myself from having to face losing you. The honesty of it hit me like a wave. This wasn't the rehearsed apology from the lawyer's office. This was real. Go on, I said. When Derek and I got in trouble with money, it was easy to convince myself that using the house value was the right thing to do. 2 birds, 1 stone. You'd be safe, we'd be solvent. But the truth is, I was using you. Using your home, your trust, your love for me. And I'm ashamed. Not just because I got caught, but because I became the kind of person who could do that to their own father. She looked around the living room, at the photos of Carolyn, at the furniture we'd collected over decades of marriage, at the life we'd built. You didn't deserve that. You deserved a daughter who visited, who called, who sat with you and talked about Mom and remembered the good times. You deserved better than me. Tyler and Emma sat quietly, watching this exchange like they were witnessing something important. What happened with Derek? I asked. Jennifer's jaw tightened. When he realized the house money was really gone, he showed who he really was. Blamed me for everything. Said I was weak. Said he should have married someone with a spine who wouldn't cave to her father. We fought for weeks. The night I told him I wanted a divorce, he said, her voice caught. He said at least now he wouldn't have to pretend to like you anymore. I'm sorry, I said, and I was. Despite everything, I didn't want my daughter to suffer. Don't be. It was the wake-up call I needed. I've spent the last 6 months working 2 jobs, seeing a therapist, trying to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to impress people or keep up appearances. It's hard. We're in a small apartment. Money's tight. But Dad, she looked at me with clear eyes. I'm happier than I've been in years, because at least it's honest. Emma tugged on her mother's sleeve. Can we tell Grandpa about the volunteer thing? Jennifer smiled. A real smile this time. I started volunteering at an elder care facility. Not Meadowbrook. I couldn't face going back there, but a similar place across town. I read to the residents, help with activities, just sit and talk with people whose families forgot about them. Like I forgot about you. It was a start, not redemption. You don't redeem 8 months of abandonment with a few months of volunteer work, but it was a start. That's good, I said carefully. I'm glad you're doing that. I know I can't fix what I did, Jennifer said. I know you probably won't ever trust me again, and I don't blame you, but I wanted you to know that it mattered. What you did, fighting back, making me face the truth, it changed me. I needed to hit bottom before I could start climbing back up. We ate pie together that night. It wasn't as good as Carolyn's. The crust was tough, and the apples weren't quite sweet enough. But we ate it anyway, making small talk about the kids' school and Jennifer's job, and the mild winter we were having. It was awkward and tentative, but it was something. Before they left, Tyler hugged me hard. Can we come back sometime, Grandpa? Maybe you could tell us more stories about Grandma? I'd like that, I said, and realized I meant it. Jennifer paused at the door. Dad? Thank you for teaching me the lesson I needed to learn, even when it hurt both of us. I watched them walk to Jennifer's old car, watched her buckle the kids in, watched them drive away. And I thought about forgiveness, about whether some things are too broken to fix, or if maybe they just need to be rebuilt from the ground up, piece by piece, with honesty instead of lies. The visits started small after that. Jennifer would bring the kids every other Sunday, never staying long, always careful not to overstep. She'd help with yard work sometimes, fix things around the house that needed fixing, but she never asked about the trust money or when I planned to update my will. She didn't ask for anything at all, which was new. Tyler started coming over on Saturdays to help me with projects in the garage, learning to use the tools his grandfather had taught me to use 40 years ago. Emma would sit with me on the porch and draw, her quiet presence a balm I didn't know I needed. 3 months into these tentative visits, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Jennifer called me from her office. Her voice was strained, professional, like she was trying to keep emotions locked down tight. Dad, I need to tell you something. Not because I want anything from you. I promised myself I'd never ask you for help again, but because you deserve to know." My chest tightened. "What is it?" "I got a letter today. From Derek's lawyer. He's suing for joint custody of the kids, and he's claiming that I'm an unfit mother because of what I did to you. He's using the elder abuse case, the signed confession, everything. He says if I put my own father in a home and stole from him, I can't be trusted to raise children properly." The irony was thick enough to choke on. Derek, who'd orchestrated half the scheme, was now using it against her. "What does your lawyer say?" I asked. "I can't afford a lawyer, Dad. I've been paying off debts and trying to keep the kids fed and housed. I'm going to have to represent myself in court, and Derek knows it. His family has money for expensive attorneys. I'm going to lose my children because of what I did to you, and I deserve it." Her voice cracked on those last words. I sat in Carolyn's chair, the one by the window where she used to read, and thought about justice versus cruelty. Jennifer had done wrong. Yes, terribly wrong. But did that make her an unfit mother? Did one set of mistakes cancel out all the good she'd done raising those kids on her own, while Derek played businessman? I thought about Tyler's serious eyes and Emma's drawings, and how they'd looked at their mother with love despite knowing what she'd done. "What's the court date?" I asked. 3 weeks, May 15th. She took a shaky breath. "I'm not calling to ask you to help me, Dad. I just thought you should know. In case Derek gets custody, and you don't see the kids for a while. They'd want to see you, but it wouldn't be my call anymore." "Jennifer," I said slowly, "would it help your case if I testified?" Silence. "Then, what? Would it help if I told the judge that you've been working to make amends? That you're a good mother who made a mistake but is trying to fix it?" More silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end, trying to process what I was offering. "Dad, you don't have to do that. You don't owe me anything. After what I did—" "This isn't about what I owe you," I interrupted. "It's about those kids. Tyler and Emma don't deserve to lose their mother because of adult mistakes. And despite everything, you are a good mother to them. I've seen it these past months." "I don't know what to say." Her voice was thick with tears. "Say you'll fight," I told her. "Say you'll get yourself a proper lawyer and fight for your children. And Jennifer, I'll pay for it." "No, Dad, no. I can't let you—" "It's not for you," I said firmly. "It's for Tyler and Emma, and maybe a little bit for your mother, who would have haunted me for the rest of my days if I let her grandchildren suffer when I could help. Bob can recommend someone good. We'll make sure you have a fighting chance." The day of the custody hearing, I put on my best suit, the one I'd worn to Carolyn's funeral, and drove to the courthouse with Bob. Jennifer was already there with the lawyer we'd hired, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in family law and didn't suffer fools. Derek sat on the other side with his expensive legal team, looking confident. When he saw me walk in, his face went pale. He hadn't expected this. The hearing was brutal. Derek's lawyer painted Jennifer as a manipulative, greedy woman who'd exploited her elderly father and couldn't be trusted with children. They brought up the signed confession, the months I'd spent at Meadowbrook, the financial details of what she'd done. It was like watching someone get flayed alive in public. Jennifer sat there taking it, her face composed but her hands shaking in her lap. Then Patricia called me to the stand. I swore on the Bible, the same one Carolyn and I had been married with, and faced the judge. "Mr. Jensen," Patricia began, "can you describe your relationship with your daughter over the past year?" I looked at Jennifer, then at Derek, then at the judge. "My daughter made terrible mistakes. She took advantage of me when I was vulnerable. She put me in a facility I didn't want to be in, and tried to sell my home. All of that is true." Derek's lawyer smiled. "But," I continued, "she also did something most people don't do when they make mistakes. She owned up to them. She signed a confession. She apologized. Really apologized. Not the kind where you say sorry, but don't mean it. and she's spent the last 6 months trying to be better." "How do you know she's trying to be better?" Patricia asked. "Because I watch her with her children. I see how Tyler and Emma look at her, how they trust her, how she's working 2 jobs to keep them fed and clothed and happy. I see her volunteering at elder care facilities, trying to make up for what she did to people like me. She's not doing it for show. She doesn't know I check on these things. She's doing it because she's genuinely trying to change who she is." The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Jensen, do you believe your daughter is fit to have custody of her children?" I took a breath. This was the moment that mattered. "Your Honor, I believe my daughter is exactly the kind of parent those kids need. She's not perfect. God knows none of us are. But she loves them fiercely. She made mistakes with me, yes, but she's learning from them. She's teaching her children that when you do wrong, you face it and fix it. That's a better lesson than they'd learn from their father, who's trying to use my pain as a weapon in a custody battle." Derek's lawyer objected, but the judge waved him off. "I'd like to hear this." "Derek orchestrated the whole scheme to take my house," I said, looking right at him. "He saw $signs and convinced my daughter to go along with it. When it fell apart, he abandoned her and blamed her for everything. Now he's using the very crime he helped commit to take away her children. If anyone's unfit here, Your Honor, it's the man who would weaponize his own mistakes against the mother of his children." You could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom. The judge looked at Derek, then at Jennifer, then back at me. "Mr. Jensen, you're aware that your testimony might help your daughter avoid consequences for what she did to you?" "She's already faced consequences," I said quietly. "She lost her marriage. She lost her home. She lost her father's trust. And that's something she might never fully get back. But her children? They shouldn't lose their mother because of this. They've done nothing wrong." After my testimony, Patricia called the kids' school counselor, who testified that Tyler and Emma were well-adjusted, happy children who spoke lovingly about their mother. She called Jennifer's employer, who confirmed she was reliable and hard-working. She called the director of the elder care facility where Jennifer volunteered, who described her dedication and compassion. Piece by piece, Patricia built a picture of a woman who'd made mistakes but was actively working to be better. Derek took the stand next, and Patricia dismantled him. She brought up his debts, his failed investments, his abandonment of Jennifer and the kids when the money ran out. She showed emails where he'd pressured Jennifer to speed up the house sale, where he'd calculated how much they'd make, where he'd already spent money they didn't have. "Mr. Morrison," Patricia asked, "isn't it true that you're seeking custody not because you believe your wife is unfit, but because you're angry she wouldn't commit perjury to help you avoid financial responsibility?" Derek stammered, contradicted himself, got angry. His lawyer tried to object, but the damage was done. The judge called a recess, and we all waited in the hallway for 2 hours while she deliberated. Jennifer sat with her head in her hands. Tyler and Emma, who'd been in a waiting room with a social worker, came out and sat with her, one on each side. Silent support. I watched this little family unit and thought about Carolyn. What would she say if she could see this? Would she be proud of me for helping? Disappointed that I'd let it get this bad in the first place? When we were called back in, the judge had her decision. I've reviewed all the testimony and evidence presented today. This is a complicated case involving serious mistakes made by both parents. However, my primary concern is the welfare of Tyler and Emma Morrison. She looked at Derek. "Mr. Morrison, your attempts to use your ex-wife's past mistakes as a weapon, while ignoring your own role in those mistakes, shows poor judgment. Your financial instability and lack of involvement in your children's daily lives also concern me." Then she turned to Jennifer. "Mrs. Morrison, what you did to your father was reprehensible. Elder abuse is a serious crime. However, I'm persuaded by Mr. Jensen's testimony that you've taken responsibility and are actively working to make amends. More importantly, the evidence shows you've been a consistent, loving presence in your children's lives. The judge shuffled her papers. I'm granting primary physical custody to Jennifer Morrison, with supervised visitation for Derek Morrison every other weekend. Mr. Morrison, you'll undergo parenting classes and financial counseling before unsupervised visits are allowed. This court will review the arrangement in 6 months. Jennifer's sob of relief echoed through the courtroom. Tyler hugged her. Emma cried. Derek's face turned purple with rage, but his lawyer grabbed his arm before he could say something that would make things worse. We filed out of the courthouse into spring sunshine. Jennifer stood on the steps with her children and looked at me with eyes that held something I hadn't seen in years. Genuine gratitude mixed with understanding. Dad, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me, I said. Just keep being the mother those kids need. That's all the thanks I want. But as I drove home with Bob, something nagged at me. I'd helped Jennifer win custody, yes. But had I forgiven her? Really forgiven her? Not just said the words, but meant them in my bones? Or was I still carrying the hurt of those 8 months like a stone in my chest? You okay? Bob asked, glancing over at me. Just thinking. About whether there's a difference between doing the right thing and feeling the right way about it. Bob was quiet for a moment. You did a good thing today, Harold. Whether you feel good about it or not, you did right by those kids. The rest will come in time. But time kept moving, and the feelings stayed complicated. Jennifer kept up her visits, kept being a good mother, kept working and volunteering and trying to be better. Summer came, and Tyler turned 13. Jennifer asked if she could throw him a birthday party at my house, at their old house, really, where Tyler had memories from when he was small. I said yes, because what else was I going to do? On the day of the party, I watched kids run through Carolyn's garden, eating cake on the porch where my wife and I used to sit on summer evenings. Jennifer organized everything, cleaned up afterward, thanked me so genuinely it hurt. Mom would have loved this, she said, sitting on the porch steps as the last guests left, seeing the house, full of life again. Your mother loved a lot of things, I said carefully. Family, most of all. I know. Jennifer picked at the peeling paint on the railing. I think about her all the time. What she'd think of what I did. What she'd think of who I became. Want to know what I think? She looked up at me, vulnerable. I think she'd be disappointed, but I also think she'd be proud of how you're trying to fix it. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat in the quiet house and realized something. The anger I'd been carrying, the righteous fury that had sustained me through 8 months at Meadowbrook, and the legal battles and all of it, it was starting to dissolve. Not because Jennifer had earned forgiveness through her actions, though she was trying, but because carrying that anger was exhausting, and I was too old to waste what time I had left on bitterness. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't something you gave because someone deserved it. It was something you gave because carrying the alternative was too heavy. I called Jennifer the next day. I need you to come over. Alone. She arrived an hour later, worry written all over her face. We sat in the living room where this had all started, where she'd brought me those papers to sign so many months ago. I've been thinking, I began, about trust, about whether it's something that can be rebuilt once it's broken, or if it's like a window, once it's shattered, you can clean up the glass, but it's never quite the same. Dad, let me finish. You broke my trust, completely. And I'm not going to lie and say it's fully repaired, because it's not. Maybe it never will be. But I'm tired, Jennifer. Tired of being angry. Tired of watching you walk on eggshells around me. Tired of this distance between us. I took a breath. Your mother, when she was dying, made me promise something. She made me promise that I'd always be there for you, no matter what, even when you drove me crazy, even when you made mistakes. She said that's what parents do. They love their children even when it's hard. Tears were streaming down Jennifer's face now. I failed that promise when I stayed angry, I continued. I had every right to be angry, yes, But staying in that anger, nursing it, letting it poison everything, that's not what Carolyn wanted. She wanted us to be family, real family, the kind that survives mistakes and comes out stronger. I don't deserve— Stop, I said gently. Stop saying you don't deserve it. Maybe you don't. Maybe none of us deserve the grace we're given. But that's what grace is. Getting something good you didn't earn. I pulled out an envelope I'd prepared. This is a new will. Bob helped me draft it. It leaves the house to you and the kids when I die. Really leaves it to you. No tricks, no clauses. The trust money gets split between Tyler's and Emma's college funds, and whatever's left goes to you to use as you see fit. Jennifer's hands shook as she took the envelope. Why? Because you're my daughter. Because Tyler and Emma are my grandchildren. Because this house should stay in the family, the way Carolyn wanted. And because— my voice cracked slightly— because I'm choosing to believe that the girl who used to bring me dandelions is still in there somewhere, and she's worth giving a second chance. Jennifer set the envelope down and hugged me. Really hugged me. Not the careful, guilty hugs from the past months, but the kind of hug where you hold on like you're drowning, and the other person is solid ground. We stayed like that for a long time, two broken people trying to piece back together something that had been shattered. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of this, she whispered. I don't need you to be worthy, I said. I just need you to be honest. Be honest with yourself, with your kids, with me. That's all. No more games, no more manipulation, no more using people. Just honesty, even when it's hard. She pulled back and wiped her eyes. I can do that. I will do that. Good. I managed to smile. Now get out of here. I have my poker game tonight with the guys from the VFW, and I need to take a nap first so I can stay awake past 9 o'clock. Jennifer laughed, a real laugh, and it sounded like music, like hope, like maybe we were going to be okay after all. The years that followed weren't perfect. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight, and there were moments when old wounds ached, but Jennifer kept her word. She stayed honest, stayed present, stayed committed to being better. She got promoted at work, moved into a nicer apartment, enrolled in night classes to get her real estate license. Tyler graduated middle school with honors. Emma started playing piano, filling the house with music when they visited on Sundays. And every week, without fail, Jennifer called, not to ask for anything, just to talk about her day, about the kids, about memories of Carolyn, about nothing and everything. On what would have been Carolyn's 75th birthday, Jennifer and the kids came over and we planted a new rose bush in the garden. American Beauty, just like the ones Carolyn had loved. Emma read a poem she'd written about a grandmother she barely remembered. Tyler shared a memory from when he was 5, and Carolyn had taught him to make cookies. Jennifer told stories I'd half forgotten, moments from her childhood when her mother was still alive, and our family was whole. We laughed and cried and remembered together, and it felt like healing. That night, after they'd gone home, I sat on the porch with a glass of Carolyn's favorite wine, the cheap stuff she'd always preferred to the expensive bottles people gave us. I looked at the stars and talked to her the way I sometimes did when I was alone. I think I did okay, baby, I said to the night sky. With Jennifer, with the kids, I think I did what you asked me to do. I was there for her. Even when it was hard, even when it hurt. I hope that makes you proud. The wind rustled through the roses, and maybe it was my imagination, but I swore I could smell Carolyn's perfume on the breeze. White shoulders, the same scent she'd worn for 40 years. I miss you, I told the stars. Every single day I miss you. But I'm okay. We're okay. Your daughter's going to be all right. Your grandchildren are growing up strong and good. The house is still standing. The garden's still blooming. You can rest easy, my love. You can rest. A year later, I had a health scare. Nothing serious, just a minor heart episode that landed me in the hospital for observation. When I woke up in that sterile room with monitors beeping around me, the first face I saw was Jennifer's. She'd dropped everything, left work, picked up the kids from school, and rushed to the hospital. For 3 days, she barely left my side. She brought me books, snuck in decent food when the nurses weren't looking, kept me company through the long, boring hours of recovery. "You know," I said on the second day, "this is the first time I've been in a hospital bed since Meadowbrook, and it's a completely different experience when someone who actually cares is sitting next to you." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "So sorry, Dad, for all of it. I know I've said it before, but I know you are," I interrupted gently. "And I forgive you, really forgive you. Not just say the words, but mean them. It took me a while to get there, but I'm there now, so you can stop apologizing and just be my daughter again. Deal?" She took my hand, the one without the IV, and held it tight. Deal! When I was released from the hospital, Jennifer insisted I stay with her for a week while I recovered. Her apartment was small, crowded, nothing like the spacious house I was used to, but it was filled with life and laughter and the chaos of children, and it felt like home in a way that surprised me. Tyler gave up his room and slept on the couch without complaining. Emma made me cards every day with drawings of us together. Jennifer cooked meals she remembered from childhood, following Carolyn's old recipes with varying degrees of success. On my last night there, after the kids were asleep, Jennifer and I sat in her tiny living room drinking decaf coffee. "Dad, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I've been seeing a therapist for about 6 months now, trying to understand why I did what I did, how to be better, all of that." She stirred her coffee absently. "She says I was trying to control you because I was terrified of losing you the way I lost Mom. That by putting you in Meadowbrook, I was protecting myself from having to watch you die." "That makes sense," I said quietly. "Doesn't make it right," Jennifer continued, "but it helps me understand it. And she's been helping me work through it, so I can be there for you in whatever time we have left. Really be there, not run away from the hard stuff. I appreciate that. I want to be there, Dad. When the time comes, however it comes, I want to be the daughter Mom would have wanted me to be, the one who holds your hand and tells you it's okay to go, the one who makes sure you're comfortable and loved, and not alone. Can I do that? Will you let me?" My throat tightened. "Yeah, baby. You can do that." We sat in comfortable silence after that. Two people who'd hurt each other and been hurt, and somehow found their way back to something real. It wasn't the relationship we'd had before all this started. That was gone forever, broken beyond repair, but it was something new, something built on honesty instead of obligation, on choice instead of blood. Maybe that made it stronger. Maybe that's what second chances were supposed to look like. Now, sitting here in my favorite chair at 73 years old, looking back on everything that happened, I can tell you this: betrayal changes you. It takes something essential and breaks it, and you're never quite the same afterward. My daughter put me in a nursing home and tried to steal my house, and those facts will never change. But neither will this. She came back. She faced what she'd done. She apologized and meant it, and spent years proving she meant it. And in the end, I had a choice to make. I could hold on to the hurt forever, or I could let it go and see what else was possible. I chose to let it go, not because she deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. And you know what? Peace is pretty good. Better than being right. Better than revenge. Better than nursing old wounds until they're all you have left. So, yeah, my daughter abandoned me at a nursing home after taking my house. But the deed I signed, the one she thought gave her everything, actually gave me something more valuable. It gave me the power to teach her the most important lesson I'd learned in 73 years of living: that you can survive betrayal and come out the other side. That family is what you build with forgiveness and work and time. And that love, real love, is stronger than hurt. That's my story. The whole thing, good and bad and complicated. Was I too hard on Jennifer? Maybe. Too soft? Possibly. but I did what felt right at each moment, and I can live with that. Carolyn would have handled it differently, probably with more grace and less anger. But she's not here, and I did the best I could with what I had. So that's my story. What did you think? Would you have done the same? Leave me a comment, give this story a like, and subscribe. I've got plenty more where this came from. Life's taught me a lot of lessons in 73 years, and I'm still here learning new ones. Thank you for listening to this old man ramble. It means more than you know.